Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown and Court Call with Ronnie Nunn. And as we all know, Ronnie was an NBA referee for 19 years and also spent 8 years in administration of the NBA, with 5 of those as head of officials. So Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show. We have a lot to go through with this Game 7 crucial Heat Raptors game from yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're talking about it, and really an interesting game, and it's a Game 7. A lot of things happen in a Game 7.
Absolutely. And, you know, most home teams win Game 7s anyway, just in the historical view. However, there's a lot of calls here that might explain to the Heat fans what happened. That said, there were some issues on the court as well. But let's go through some calls because there were some concerning ones to me. And start out right in the bat at the end of the first quarter, we had a little scrum under the basket and the ball goes out of bounds. And it was a very quick bang-bang play, no consideration, just sort of boom. It was the Heat ball. But what do you think about this call?
Well, you know, the call was incorrect, and it was tough because I think there was a lot of concentration on the drive. There was a question of whether, you know, DeRozan had gotten fouled. I think it was Gray at best. He did get his shots off without being blocked in that. And all of a sudden, at the very end of it, there's no question that the player in red, Miami, pulls the ball away, cups it out of bounds. And unfortunately, we got that wrong. By the same token, had we been in 2 minutes or under, when it would have been more critical, we've been able to look at that. But for the first 46 minutes of any NBA game, you can't look at the monitor for an out-of-bounds play. So, you know, hey, out of bounds is the toughest call in the NBA, as far as my career knows that. And so missing this play is just part of the game sometimes. Out of bounds plays and flicks are very difficult.
Sure. I mean, you know, it's interesting. To me, even in real time, I kind of winced a little bit. But, you know, that happens. And it looked like he might have been shielded off a bit from that view. Yeah. And it was just, you know, had to be called. And credit to the players. DeRozan didn't complain either.
You know, that's a very good sign. Sometimes officials, supervisors will look at plays and say, geez, he didn't complain. Maybe it didn't happen. I think that the day is getting better where players don't complain about officiating. It doesn't mean that the call was correct. So a credit to the players for comportment, and I give them 100% on that.
Well, let's move on to, in the second quarter, we had a very strange play where the Heat fans were very upset on Twitter, where Kyle Lowry comes across the middle in transition and ends up what appears to be a flop, because it certainly looks like the contact that was there wouldn't have indicated that he would have taken a headlong fall to the ground like he did, but the refs gave him the call. So what are you seeing on this play?
Well, you know, on this play, it's the old adage of fool the ref. We have a category in our work called fool the ref plays. And this was an offensive flop, which usually happens by the defense. It's an offensive flop in which he lures an official's whistle, who actually is in a position not to really see where that contact was. If you notice, the 2 officials at the bottom of our screen and to the left are not referring a whistle to this play. It's the outside official furthest away that comes up with this play, and he should have it, but I think he's blocked out of it when it happens. And of course, the flop lures you into it, and he lets go, and he needs to hold on that whistle, and he didn't on that one. So unfortunately, the player got an advantage here.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and, you know, it kind of was setting the tone. I feel like Miami started to get a little frustrated at this point because of that, and not long after, we have a drive by DeMar DeRozan, and there's some interesting things here that I want you to talk about as far as where the drive originates and whether or not the contact merited foul, which it was called, and free throws for DeRozan.
Yeah, you know, DeRozan's spin is a good one. But if you notice, when he's driving sort of like off the baseline. Now, when you first look at him, it's not off the baseline. But when he finishes, you'll notice he's at the area where the restricted line does not go. The restricted line does not go to the end line. It goes to the front edge of the basket. And in that drive, a defender would have to be out of the restricted area. If he's in that other area where there is no restricted area, this is a regular block charge play. And I'll credit the official. If he feels that the defender got there late, then it is a block. There's no question. But if he's talking about a restricted area play, I think he would be incorrect, because this would be a play not associated with restricted. This is timing. And by the way, it's very, very close. And I have no problem with the fact that he calls it a block. If he's calling on Winslow, I see a block being understandable.
The only problem, right, and because I could see there's enough maybe contact. He got stuck under the basket without much to do, and it was almost a bailout. However, when you look at the play-by-play, they call the foul on Tyler Johnson, which would have been A, very late, and then B, a little bit really head-scratching. So I don't know what to make of this, other than that maybe he didn't like the call and then decided, you know what, there's enough on the push-off earlier that we'll give it to him. Is that possible on his replay in his head?
Well, the only thing I could say is if it was the other way around, where the other offended player went to the line, I would understand. There might have been a quick push-off, you know, on the rebound, because the ball is going to the other side of the hoop. But if it's that play, I think it's Winslow and maybe the table and the stenographer, the statistician got the wrong numbers down and put this in. It's very few and far between, but it does happen.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to see if there's a correction in the referee's 2-minute drill. Well, the next play we have here then is a real bang bang. We missed the actual live version of this when they didn't cut it quick enough, but we did get a replay with not a great angle where Dwayne Wade cuts to the hoop, and apparently people thought he flopped on getting an elbow to the face going across the lane. What is your take on this, having looked at it a few times?
Well, I think the fact of the matter is it's one of those fool the referee plays again. And it's done by the offense, but it's done by Wade, or whomever you want to say is doing something like this, as an offensive flop. The elbow goes, it's kind of there and it's close. I don't really think it catches him. It's very, very close. But you want to know something? The official catches it. And if you notice his signal on an off ball is a fist and an immediate 2. He has 2 fingers up, knowing that elbow fouls, the nature of them in that manner, is a 2-shot foul. And also, I think on this play the ball was live. It wasn't a throw-in. Or if it was a throw-in, it's an automatic 2 before the release. But if it's not, if you see something with an elbow, it's 2 shots. And by the way, you can balance that with basically going to a flagrant. Anything with an elbow also leans to a flagrant, you know. So, but I see the 2. So I think he's believing an elbow was raised, it caught him, and he went with 2. I think it's so unclear that I would have liked to have seen, if he's thinking 2, go to the monitor, because elbows are flagrants, and go to the monitor and really confirm it. I don't think they went to the monitor on this one. Right,
they didn't, and I think that we deserved another angle, because if you see the position of Dwayne Wade, he's leaning forward, and so the angle that we have, it makes it appear that, you know, the elbow does clear, but I think that there's a frame in here where the elbow does glance off of the cheek. We do know that Wade will embellish from time to time and to try and get fouls, but I don't normally see him completely make up the phantom stuff like that in a way that you know, he reacts relatively close to when it happened. So I'm willing to say that, short of another replay we could ever get and see, there might have been just a little bit of a glance across the cheek, and you know then that becomes embellished. But I feel like there might be a frame in there we could see where there was some contact.
Well, yeah, like I say, I'm going to go with the official on the floor on that, because of his 2 fingers. And I mean, I like where his eyes are. That's where they belong. He gets hold of it and sees it that way. I do think, with an extra sense of poise, if he believes that, go to the monitor, because that's one that will take you to the monitor, and it sort of takes you off with the guessing game or being fooled.
Well, let's move on later on, where Biyombo was shooting free throws and Luol Deng had the inside position down low. And what I feel like is a phantom call. There doesn't seem to be anything that happens here on this loose ball, and yet the whistle blows and it ends up hurting Miami in the next possession. So what do you see, Ronnie? Do you agree with me, or do you feel like there was merited a call?
No, I think, as I mentioned on the show many times, one thing about officiating is poise and a development of a play with contact, meaning every play has a start, it has a development, it has a finish. And I think in a couple of the occasions, especially with that bump on the other end, on the shot where we thought there was a bump, I think you've got to see through plays completely before you pop your whistle. This one, I think, is popped too quickly. I think that play was popped too quickly as well with Lowry. And these are the issues of officiating that you must. There are some plays that call themselves, you don't need to get off the starting block. When as soon as the start is, you see it, you clean it up, you pop it, and it's right there. Some plays evolve. You just go through a development piece of it, and then you see where it really is a problem. Take your time. If you have a later whistle, not a problem. You're really processing that play. And finally, some plays happen at the very end, and the player is not able to return to the floor even on a layup, and you see the contact, and you get that play. But I think these are too quick at the start position, and that's what creates a problem, and it appears more of an error.
Sure, I agree. It seemed like there was definitely a delay there, or no, too quick, and then not enough to merit a call, and it would have been the Heat ball. And then if we go further on in the third quarter, we have a really big blunder by the Heat defense in transition where they don't pick up Lowry. No one seems to know who's supposed to be guarding him, and perhaps it's because they don't have the big guy in there and they're all playing out of position anyway. But the bottom line is Lowry gets right to the basket. The crowd was going crazy. They had a big lead. But when I looked at it again, it didn't smell right with the number of steps he got in there. So, Ronnie, what are you seeing in there? Do you feel like there's a legal play here?
Yeah, there's an illegal play here, and this one's definitely a travel. You know, travels of this nature are very tough. The players gather balls at certain times, and this is a gather where when you really see him get it, he's got the left foot down, and he can only go right-left. So he ends up going, you know, left foot down is your 0. Here comes right-left, which is your 2, and then all of a sudden here comes right again, which is your 3. It looked like a run off the gate, off the starting blocks of a track meet, and it actually was. When you see that extra step and you know it probably doesn't look right, it isn't right, you know, and you got to stay away from the look except to get the cadence of a travel, get the cadence of a grab of the ball, get the cadence of a travel. And as I mentioned it many times for the officials, it's like a dance. It's a rhythm. See the rhythm of the play, and then you will see when it's arrhythmic, and you'll notice that at that time, especially when it's more steps, that you're probably right in it being a travel.
Right. Well, credit Lowry for doing it, I guess, fast enough. And in real time, I didn't necessarily feel like it. So, but something was gnawing at me, and then I had to go back and to really see it. But then it seemed pretty clear. And again, too bad. These are crucial plays in the middle of the third quarter where Miami could not keep pace. And it's difficult when you have these kind of things happening. And another call that happened later on in the third quarter was when Dragic is trying to attack. Their offense did not look good all night anyway, but he's trying to create something. A really quick spin move. He is very, cagey with his moves anyway. And they called this foul. What did you think? Was this an offensive foul on the spin by Dragic?
You know, when I first looked at it, I thought maybe not, and I thought our official on the bottom got caught maybe in being blocked out, and maybe it was a flop by the defense, sort of sitting back, falling back to sit back. But when I looked at it from another view offered, I noticed that he did lower his shoulder. So remember, with flops, if the offense really does something that instigates that kind of move, the flop, even though it's there's another piece of it that the offense actually created. And so, yes, the guy bounces back to make it embellished, but the fact of the matter is the shoulder is what gets it, not the arm. Because when you look at another angle, the arm kind of looks like he warded him off when he really didn't. It was the shoulder hit that really he took advantage of defensively and got credited for it. So if you think refereeing is easy, it is not. And it's all these parts of the body that fall into place. And the more experience you have with, the more plays you see, the better you are. And if you get feedback, it's important to understand feedback. And that's why I enjoy teaching more than anything in my work. Managing the guys is tough, but teaching was a joy.
Absolutely. Well, again, I'll hear you. There's no question that this is a very tough business to be in to try and officiate these calls. And again in the third quarter, another one where this one made me laugh out loud, literally, when you see Jason Thompson on the hedge with a pick and roll with Dwayne Wade. I don't know how else to explain this other than he literally puts his hand on him and pushes him away, and Dwayne Wade literally has to lunge back to keep his balance. I'm kind of glad he hits the three, but what do you think? How is there an explanation for this right in the front of the referee?
It's not a good explanation. This is the kind of play where referees get caught up in contact plays about whether to call the play, is there an advantage, disadvantage, and I think when we talk about advantage, disadvantage, you leave that in the offices and the committee on rules interpretations. You leave that there. When you get down to the playing field of the court, you're really calling plays as they are. And when plays are obvious, you don't think about, is this a good call at this time of the game? Is this not a good call? There was no advantage gain. He's going backwards instead of going forwards. Forget that stuff. Call the play that is obvious and let it let it lay on the players that are responsible for their actions.
Yeah, mystifying. It was very strange. And again, I guess I'm glad that Wade got the 3-ball out of that. But again, there's a lot of benefits from getting calls against the other team and stuff like that. So very strange play by Thompson anyway to do that, but he got away with it. Well, let's move on to the last play of our show tonight in the fourth quarter, which ultimately ended in a little bit of a melee here, where and we talked about this before. The issue isn't necessarily what Josh McRoberts did, which he certainly took a hard foul and a flagrant, but it's when you miss the stuff before that that becomes the issue, and we didn't have to be here in the first place. So, did you see the same thing I saw on the scrum for the initial rebound by Biyombo that should have probably been whistled for Josh McRoberts?
Yeah, there's no question. I'm very sensitive to the staff, and I appreciated my time with them, and I taught them certain methods that we needed to do mechanically. These are mechanic methods. These are issues. It's like running an offense for a coach. When you run your offense right, you will get the openings, and you'll get the plays, and you'll get the people that need to get open the right way. When you don't run the offense, things get messed up, and spacing, for example, gets messed up. Everybody, the official on the baseline is dealing with a drive, and there's no question. And the official at the top of our screen is dealing partially with that drive, and the outside officials got to work on rebounding. If the two guys are dealing with drives, one's got to deal with the rebound. And by the way, sometimes the one guy on the drive is the lead official under the hoop. He's the only one needed to deal with the drive. That means we have two rebounders. If you're not with shooters, you've got to be with rebounders. And this action is about rebounding. And it should have been cleaned up right then and there. Now, they could have done any number of things to deal with it. If they thought it was an elbow, it definitely was a loose ball foul. The player also went to the floor. But if you're not concentrated on what you should be looking at, you're going to miss it. And you don't know how it started. Now you don't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you don't blow the whistle. This is kind of like a part of refereeing. And it's good and not good. It tells you you're not focused. So simply said, this is a rebounding play for both outside officials. Somebody should have gotten it.
Well, I think those are all terrific points, and we definitely had, a number of things to go over in a crucial Game 7. Doesn't make it much easier for the Heat to deal with when you look at it later on, but hopefully, I guess, going forward, we get a little bit of a cleaner game, and maybe the game isn't as rough as this one was anyway, and it makes it easier on the officials to make those calls.
Yeah, you got to stay with the program all the time, and I think we got to get out of the mindset that people think the game is officiated differently in the playoffs versus the regular season. The players play tighter, but the officials have to rev up their activity and their focus to make sure the game has its proper physicality, and the improper one, nail it right then, and let the guys do their thing.
Absolutely. I remember back in the past when you were refereeing, Gerritsen would blow the whistle right away in the beginning of the game, let those big guys know, okay, this is what's going to be. And that was a playoff game, and everything was kind of, cool from that on. And I feel like maybe that would be a valuable tool to use even in today's game.
Well, it certainly is. Daryl Gerritsen is my hero as well as the heroes of those of my contemporaries. I listened to him because I knew the least about officiating, and through him I began to know more and more about it. Never thinking to be an administrator, but I began to put my basketball coaching knowledge into officiating as well. He really made it blossom for me. So I began to learn a piece of the game that not many of us get a chance to do, and at that level. So I've been a student of it, and I just know through his teaching all the little wrinkles and where they are, and I've been thankful to have been taught so well by him.
Well, we're thankful to have you bring your knowledge to this show and break it down for us like you do. So, Ronnie, thank you so much for coming on the show and breaking this down. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Ronnie?
I'm in, Coach. Another great day to be with you.